Glad to have you back here. Hey, trying to suggest you open up page 58. Uh, Going through those, really talked about the seeds. Talked all about the different flower parts yesterday. If you remember, it's all about that pollination. Remember that the pollen from this flower has to get to the pistil of a different flower, and that's the only way a seed can get created. That's called pollination. The wind can do that. A lot of different animals help with pollination. But the only way, again, is for pollen from one plant to get to should say that same type of plant from flower to flower, and a seed can get created. This is our exact assignment you're going to have in your paper packet. Strong suggests you go through it with us. All about seeds. Again, this one is one we're going to answer again. One you can probably already answer. Now focus more on some seeds and the parts of a seed and how seeds get dispersed or how seeds get planted in cases. Please note, a spore is not a seed. It's not a seed. So please don't But at any rate, let's continue on. Here's that first question we already talked about, which you could probably write in. You don't even need to pause the video, but plants need specifics. They need carbon dioxide or air. They need water. They need sunlight. That's how they make their food. And conditions have to be right. You can see a lot of greenery, which means you know they're getting those three things. They're getting water. They're getting sunlight. They're getting air. They're getting plenty of air and plenty of sunlight. They're not getting water. That's why you're not seeing any plants. That's why you're not seeing any seeds germinate or sprout. The conditions have to be right here in order for a seed to sprout or germinate. I'm going to come back to this picture, but I first want to focus on the three parts of a seed. Remember, this is part of your assignment here. We're going to go through it. If you want to list the three parts, the coat or the hull, the embryo, and the endosperm. When we talk about the endosperm, I want you to think about food. Let me show you a picture here. Here we have the outer covering. That's a seed coat. Just like when it's cold, put a coat on to help protect you. That's the exact thing, same thing that a seed coat does. Protects all the important stuff inside. And you understand that in the seed is everything that the plant needs to grow. It's the DNA, even a little tiny seed, to get into a huge giant oak tree. Now the embryo, that's the plant itself. That's the part that's going to be sticking out of the ground. And you might be wondering, well, how in the world, if the plant's going to stay in the ground for so long, how does it eat? It can't get to the sunlight. Well, God's infinite wisdom thought of that. It's called the endosperm, or it's just simply a big fancy pants science word for it's the food that's stored in the seed, so the embryo has nutrients to eat. Now, going back to this, this is the seed. You can see the seed coat. Please don't think right here that this is the embryo. This is not. These are the roots. This is the embryo coming out. And the only reason it's able to grow healthy and strong is because it's getting the nutrients or the food inside there. And of course, when it gets bigger on its own, it's going to break. Won't need the seed anymore as far as the plant goes. So those are the three parts. I'm going to show you this picture again. To see the three parts: seed coat, the embryo, and the food, or called the endosperm. Here's another picture that you can see here. Most of it's made up of the endosperm, so that the embryo has stuff to eat, and then the hull or the coat, same thing. Hull and seed coat, the same thing. But you can imagine, as we said before, how important the seed is for the plant to grow. And here's where it gets a little tricky. You guys know that a tree can't just go plant its own seeds. It can't do that. So God in His infinite wisdom had a lot of seeds that you probably eat. It'll love fruit, just like this. Now, think about this. What you do when you eat nutritious fruit, and you probably spit out the seeds or throw away the seeds. Now think about that. Animals do the same thing. Animals want to eat the fruit, and animals eat it, but they spit out the seeds, and if you caught it, they're actually planting the seed for the tree, aren't they? Now, some animals can eat the fruit right off the tree, But you guys also know that, remember, this seed, that's the important part because that's got the embryo for the new plant. This pit right here has a seed inside it. That's got the embryo for the new plant. The seed has to be protected. So you might see a bunch of fruit fall from the tree. Well, the fruit can protect that, right? The fruit is really just there for the seed to be protected. That's the most important part. Also, that also makes it easier for animals to eat the plants, or eat the fruit that's on the ground. So we want to talk about now seeds and their what they look like. They can look like a lot of different things, but this is how they start, and then they sprout or germinate, and then a lot of times the plant makes fruit to protect the seed, and inside that seed has all the DNA, so they know what plant they are, what they're going to grow into as they grow along. Now we're going to talk about seed dispersal, more specifically how seeds move. They don't have legs, they don't have cars, they need help from nature, and they get a lot of different help from nature. Some of the most famous, if you ever had those squirrel or chipmunk cheeks, right? They store a bunch of the nuts, they store a bunch of the seeds inside their mouth. So that's how seeds get dispersed, that's how seeds move around, so to speak, move around. Here's another way. This buffalo with this big hairy head, if you see that there, they have what we might call prickers. Man, I hate those when they get on your socks, when they get on your clothes, but sorry guys, that's the point. Inside those prickers is the seed for that plant. And I hate picking them off my socks. I hate picking them off my clothes. If I was a buffalo, I'd hate picking it off my head. But that's the whole point for seeds to move around. You might help seeds get dispersed and move around when you're walking through, maybe on a hunting or fishing trip, and you're walking through some plants and you get a bunch of that on your socks. You pick them off and you just throw them out. You're helping plant the seed. Buffaloes aren't the only one that have plants all over their hair and their fur. It happens to a lot of animals. You might see them brush it off or get it off. Well, they're helping move that seed to a different location where they can sprout and germinate. We're going back to our squirrel friends. You guys know this. They go and they store a bunch of seeds and they plant them in the ground. I don't know if you caught that, but they actually plant them in the ground. Nope, sorry. Now their point, come on back, squirrel, where are you going? Their whole point there for their thing is to come back later when it's winter or prepare to have a bunch of food. But I hate to say it, circle of life, that squirrel might plant a whole bunch of seeds around, plan to come back, but some eagle or hawk, all of a sudden, all those seeds are left in the ground, and, well, they're planted, aren't they? Right? Sometimes the squirrels just plain forget where they planted them all, and they can't come back to eat them, and now all of a sudden the plant can grow, right? So animals bury the seeds, again, for the point of eating them at a later time, but they also plant a lot of the seeds for the plant itself. Now, it's not always animals. Sometimes it's just wind. I know we talked about the pollen that can make us sneeze. Sometimes some of the milkweed can make us sneeze. This is pollen, so please don't get confused. But these are the actual seeds that are blowing in the wind. God kind of made them look like almost a little parachute that has enough seeds that it the pod opens up and they just travel along in the wind, and where they land, hopefully they can sprout and germinate and grow there. You might have some of the most famous seeds. Well, that's in the coconut. Now, the coconut is not a seed, but the seeds are in the coconut. And you guys might see a lot of palm trees in Caribbean islands. A lot of them get moved around because they fall off the tree. They fall into the ocean. They get carried along on the ocean waves and on the island, and hopefully the husk of the coconut rots and breaks away, and the seed is planted and sprout and germinate whatever island it's at. Now that's all about seeds. I want to talk about spores. Spores are not seeds. Do you remember a couple days ago when we talked about how mosses and ferns are plants? Moss is non-vascular, no tubes. Ferns are vascular, they do have tubes, but they don't have flowers. Remember, the flower is the whole part where the plant can make the seed if it is pollinated. But God made mosses and ferns to have spores. Now what spores are is exactly that. They're just a whole bunch of spores, not seeds. They're just a whole bunch of spores there, and in that spore is everything that's needed to make a new moss or make a new fern. It is like, and I'm purposely saying it's like a seed in the fact that it has everything it needs for a new plant to grow, but a spore is not a seed. Seeds come from flowers. Mosses and ferns don't have flowers. You might say, well, where does it get planted then? And if you look, this is kind of a spore sac of a different non-flowering plant. And sometimes what happens is they actually just and explode, and they have the spores go all over the place in the wind. And hopefully, wherever those spores fall, they can sprout and germinate in there. And here's the picture of that actually happening. This is a spore sac that is exploding, and literally the spores just go all over the place. It looks kind of gross. It looks kind of icky. I'm not a big fan of spores, but that is how certain plants reproduce, which means make new plants of themselves. I hope you guys learned a few things. It's kind of a fun topic in my opinion. That's your assignment. Good luck and Godspeed. And please have a wonderful day as you praise your Savior.